If you're Brazilian and interested in getting a US green card, there's three important sections and things you need to know. I'm going to go over them in detail for you so you're better prepared for the process. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. I help Brazilians get green cards. So let's get started. Number one, and this is the largest portion of the problems we see with our Brazilian cases. Brazilian applicants come to the US to get green cards in different ways, and that is the documents that they have. So first and foremost, if you're getting a green card, you have to have a birth certificate. And well enough, we all have birth certificates for the most part, especially in Brazil, it's pretty customary to issue them. There's different issues that pop up. For example, you have an unabridged or abridged version, a long and short version. And recently they've made it so that your grandparents could be listed as your parents. So it gets confusing for consular officers to see who your parents really are based on your birth certificate. So you want to get the unabridged long version that separates your parents from your grandparents so it's less confusion. Adding to that is when you give your documents updated sometimes with the Brazilian government. It doesn't always happen, but if you get married or divorced, especially older times, a couple of years ago, they would add that to the existing birth certificate, take the old one or old marriage record, and then give you a new one for the new marriage, not give back the old one. These kind of issues persist every once in a while. Just a lot of times, depending on the state that you're in. So be prepared for that to get the original documents, the certified copies that have every part of it, the divorces, the marriages, all that kind of stuff, so you're safe. Talking about the different states, there's police certificates required if you're getting a green card through the embassy system. Now, these police certificates show that you don't have criminal history. If you do, that's a whole different conversation. But you need to get a federal one. But also, if you live in any state for more than 6 months as a adult over the age of 16, you need to get one from those states as well. Now, one issue that comes up with all these documents is that each state in Brazil, and there's a lot of them, have different versions of these documents. So it's always not always easy for us to identify if it's a correct or incorrect document if you're in a state that usually don't see as immigration lawyers. If you're in Rio or if you're in Sao Paulo, those are the typical cases we see. We got very familiar with the documents. So you pair that you might have some documents that even the embassy or consular officer is not accustomed to seeing. Now, the marriage is really important because a lot of our cases are marriage green cards. And when you get married in Brazil, obviously they issue a marriage certificate. But some notes, if you've been married, for example, in America, and then you're divorced in America and you go back to Brazil to get married, you need to register that divorce so it's recognized in Brazil before you get remarried there. We have couples sometimes who want to get married. We dissuade them from getting married in Brazil because of the paperwork and the hassles of getting married there. It's sometimes not worth it. So either get married while you're in the US, or more likely than not, we tell people to get married online through the states of Montana or Utah, where you can do a video marriage, and after marriage, you see each other physically, and that consummates a relationship so that the U.S. Immigration Department recognizes that marriage. Because again, if going to Brazil, from the last time I checked, you might have to be there for 30 days before you're allowed to even get married, and there's extra paperwork and hassle and signing this, signing that. It's much simpler not to have to go through all of that. I talked about the police record, talked about these documents, and about the marriage records and all that. One note is U.S. is recognizing nowadays the common law marriage. I think it's called a certificate of a recognized relationship or something like that, stable relationship. So these are acceptable. Ideally, you just get married. It's easier. But if that's popped up where you're a common law marriage, something to look into. As you see, there's a lot of these different nuances that are Brazil specific when it comes to documents that we have to be prepared for. In general, there's other issues that pop up. We get cases all the time where people's names are misspelled on their birth certificate, the wrong names, missing names, the parents' names are incorrect, the date of birth is incorrect. Or one of the worst is once you're born, your parents don't register your birth for many months or maybe even years after birth. If it's like 2, 3, 4, maybe even 6 months after birth that your birth certificate is registered with the government, it's usually okay. But if it keeps going longer and longer, the government of the U.S. will question whether that birth certificate is legitimate. So you really want to watch out so you don't have those kind of issues. So that's generally the document issues that pop up. But the next thing that pops up a lot, because Brazil has one of the highest rates of tourist visas to the United States. Other than Mexico, they're usually top number one for visa issuances for B1, B2 tourist visas. And a lot of times Brazilians come here to visit and then decide to stay. Now, they might hear online a thing about the 90-day rule. It's not officially a rule, but they can hassle you, where if you enter the U.S. with a tourist visa and then quickly go to a student visa or get married and file for a green card, there's a potential that they'll hassle you and say, oh, you didn't really come as a tourist to visit temporarily. You're really planning to come here to get married, apply for the visa, and it could be problematic. So be very aware of that because, again, we do see that pop up a lot where Brazilians come and visit and then decide to stay here. And then later on, the government would say, hey, you just went to a tourist visa interview. You told them you're coming to visit. You don't have anyone in America. And then a week after coming in, you get married. What's going on? How did you fall in love that quickly and get married? It doesn't make sense. And that could be a fraud or misrepresentation issue that we really want to avoid. So number 3 is the medical and panel physician in Brazil. If you're getting a green card while you're in Brazil, you got to be mindful of 2 things. One is because of the high rate of tuberculosis or TB in Brazil, you're going to need to do an x-ray. We've had clients at the chest x-ray to make sure you don't have active tuberculosis. We've had clients who are pregnant who still did it, but they could postpone the medical testing if needed for that. But it is a requirement for Brazilians, for Chinese people, because there's 7 or 8 countries where it's mandatory. Another issue that unfortunately happens, I've seen, is the doctors you go to for the medical checkup is called a panel physician. Off and on, we've got reports that the panel physician wants to do extra testing or extra stuff that charges them that's not necessary. So be careful. Make sure it's, talk with the immigration lawyer. If we're us, we'll help see what's going on to avoid those kind of issues. Sometimes you have no control because we're stuck with these people. You got to do what you got to do. But I've seen that unfortunately happen. So I want people to be aware. I'm not sure if the current set of panel physicians do it. I haven't had to deal with that in a while. But I remember a couple years back, we had a doctor that was really hassling a lot of people, and we had to, get on top of that and inform the consulate so they could fix that situation up. Now, those are the 3 things we see for green card cases, especially a lot of them are embassy specific, the police certificates and the panel physician. You still have to do a medical checkup if you're doing what's called adjustment of status, a green card in the United States, and as well as the dual intent issue of, whether you're coming as a tourist and then changing status of the issue. So that's the big picture of really important issues that if someone calls us that's Brazilian, that we say we got to do. But one bonus issue is this. The U.S. has agreements with a lot of countries in the world. For example, Spain and Portugal, and I think Portugal is getting kicked in pretty soon, but Italy and France, where have a passport of those countries, you could come and start a small business in the United States and invest. It could be, $40,000, $50,000, as low as that. It's called the E2 Treaty Investor Program. Now, Brazil does not have this agreement with the U.S., but a lot of Brazilians have the ability to get dual citizenship, citizenship for other countries, again, those European countries I listed. If you're able to get that passport and you want to get out of Brazil and start a business and, be an entrepreneur in the United States, it is possible through those passports, and the embassies and consulates. There was only one embassy in Brazil, but the consulates, those are the sub-chapters, they do handle E2 visas. So it's something to look into if you're starting a business. There's other L1, H1B, O1. These are big hassles a lot of times. But if you want to invest and you got some money and you got some talent to get something done, that's something to look at. That's outside the green card case, but I just want to share that these options are available to Brazilians because so many Brazilians are coming to the United States. They're almost a sister country, big countries in the Western Hemisphere that have so much going on. Both countries are going a little bit of political upheaval, so sometimes switching up and going to a new place just to get a relief of sorts. It's not bad. A lot of Americans go to Brazil, having a good time there. We'd love to have you from Brazil come to our country as well. I love my Brazilian clients. Sao Paulo is our number one place they're coming from. So we always love talking, working with them, helping their families out. But all across Brazil, it's been a real pleasure. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. If you want to contact us, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact, and then fill that short form out, your name, your phone number, email, so we can contact you back if needed and give the information to get your case started. Again, I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and I hope to speak with you soon.